So my clock says it's 12 o'clock, noon. Kathleen, are you with us? Wonderful.
I'm here.
Here she comes. Okay, so I want to welcome everybody to this webinar. I'm excited. We have great attendance today. And I just want to say that our purpose here is to answer any questions we can answer for you specifically. So if you want to use the chat or the Q&A, Elaine is here to help me monitor that, and we'll make sure your questions get addressed. And we also just realized that, you know, Kathleen and I have been working together, what now, a year and a half? So
Yeah.
a long time before we even did the official merger. And for all of you in October, this was all brand new. So Kathleen and I thought, you know, for us to get together and provide some information to you and some additional context. We have a half an hour. We'll stay on time, but we will be sure to take your questions. So that's our purpose for today. For those of us on the call that are just being introduced to Kathleen, you will soon learn about her, which those of you that are already associated with Steps of Love and Educarte already know that she is a fireball and full of energy.
A nice way to put it.
Right. A force to be reckoned with. She is a mover and has done some amazing work in Mexico, Puerto Peñasco specifically. And I have a great admiration for her and am excited to be co-leading this effort. So Kathleen, would you just tell us a little bit about, for those of us that aren't familiar with Educarte, what the work is, how you got started, give us some background info.
You bet. The Reader's Digest condensed version, it really starts with my kind of lifelong belief that where a child starts in life shouldn't determine where they finish, and a really strong coinciding belief that the best tool we can give a young person to change their outcome in life is access to quality educational opportunities. And that's here in Puerto Peñasco, that's in the States, that's really anywhere in the world. And so my family and I vacationed here over many years, and I saw a lot of young people in this community clearly not having the chance to go to school. And I didn't understand the barriers. I just knew that there was a lack of access to education for a lot of young people in this community. And it wasn't until after many years vacationing here, in 2012, I was finally in a position in my life in terms of not having to work full time and having some resources to be able to really begin to look at and figure out and address this issue in this community that I had fallen in love with. And so what I learned was that although there is a public school system here in the community provided by the government, many kids in this community are not able to access that simply due to lack of resources, not lack of a desire or interest in going to school. Unlike in the United States, public school is not free all the way through 12th grade. In high school, you have to pay registration, tuition, uniforms, books, fees. It's quite expensive to attend high school here. So a large percentage of the students, young people here, are not able to attend high school simply because of the financial barriers. But what I also learned in meeting, I spent about 3 years kind of immersing myself in the community from 2012 to 2015, and talking to anyone who would talk to me and talking to families who wanted their kids to go to school but weren't able to. And what I learned is even at the younger grades where there's no direct educational fees, tuition, that sort of thing, you still have to show up, your kids have to show up the first day of school with that backpack full of $50 worth of school supplies. You have to be able to get your kids to school. You have to be able to help them with their homework, provide regular materials, and ongoing academic support resources to be able to not just attend school, but succeed and move on from year to year. And so I met with many, many families before launching this program, very hardworking families who were able to get by, meet their family's basic needs. None of them had a lot of resources that they could provide for their basic needs, but they simply didn't have those extra resources to send their kids to school. So they were being forced to choose basic needs or sending my kids to school. And to me, that was heartbreaking as a parent to be forced to make that kind of decision. And so that's where I formed a local advisory group. I felt it was very important that whatever I did be led by people from this community. I will talk a little bit, I'm sure, later about this merger, that one of the reasons the fit was so good was because we share the same idea and thoughts model in terms of going into another country. We as Americans should not be determining what the program looks like and what the needs are and how to best meet them, but we should support the efforts of people in the local community who do understand better than us. And so we launched this program in 2016. There were a local psychologist, Jeri Peralta, a wonderful local psychologist who grew up here, and our current executive director, Carolina Pacheco, who was born and raised here as well. The three of us launched this program, and we identified 72 students in the community from kindergarten through high school who were not going to be able to start school that next school year in 2016 without help with resources. And it's just grown from there.
And your work falls into three buckets, right? Some of that has changed since the merger, but essentially, what are your three program areas?
So for many years, up until last January, we had one main program area, and that was supporting public school students. As I explained, there are a lot of barriers that prevent kids from attending public schools. And so our model is, fortunately, we did not go into a situation, I did not enter a country where we had to look at maybe building schools and funding the operation of schools and raising millions of dollars. In this community, there is a public school system. The challenge is that some families and kids who are living in poverty or with very limited resources are not able to access that public school system. And so our role was not for the first 5 years, was not to come in and replicate or supplant that role of the local government. We're not here to build schools and operate schools. There are schools. We're here to partner with the government and supplement what they are able to do, find kids who aren't able to access that school system that's available to them because of lack of financial resources in the older grades, or anything from transportation to help with homework, academic support in the younger grades, help them access the local school system, and then help them really thrive once they're in that. And so we like to say that our work only begins by getting the kids in the door, whether it's helping pay their tuition or getting them a backpack full of school supplies, helping get a birth certificate so they can register, helping fill out registration forms. But getting them in the door is where our work starts. And then we follow them, the local team follows them throughout the school year to assure that they consistently have the resources and support they need to thrive. And a core part of that program became, that first year we opened our first homework club. They function much like Boys and Girls Clubs. In the younger grades, the greatest need is not direct financial support, but ongoing academic support, help with homework, remediation for kids that are significantly behind. Again, working in partnership with the local public schools who can't be everything to everybody, and providing that extra help to make sure kids are thriving in the public school system. And we started with these 72 students from kindergarten through high school. Well, then some of them moved on. Before COVID, we had a 98% retention rate. We make a commitment to stick with these kids. And so year after year, as things evolved, we had kids going off into college. We now have several college graduates, dozens of kids in college. They all came up through our system. None of them came to us as college students. But we started with just that one main program. And then a year ago, in January, we just had our 1-year anniversary. We launched a program to serve kids with special needs. We had been wanting to do that for several years. We had many families from this community begging. In many cases, there was no comprehensive support with the different therapies and special education needed for children with special needs to reach their potential. And they were having to go long distances to Hermosillo, to the Children's Hospital. Many times they could only go once a month or every other month. So we launched a program to serve kids with special needs in this community. And now we're providing regular speech, occupational, physical therapy, special education services for several dozen young people. That program is just finished its first year and is continuing to grow. And now, because of this merger, we're very excited that we've always tried to look at this very holistically. I mean, we know if a child's hungry, they're not going to learn. So we can't just say, oh my goodness, we're going to get kids in school and give them academic support and hope it goes well. We have to look at, you know, at things very holistically and make sure that the kids in our program, the young people, have the resources and support they need to thrive in all areas of their life. And so through this partnership with Esperança, we have a new program area, which is basically health and
Wellness.
education, health
Health
and
and
wellness.
wellness. Yep.
If we have kids in our program who, if they're sick, the family does not have the resources to deal with a small issue, a cold, and bronchitis, and get on an antibiotic, or a tooth that ends up becoming infected, and then they miss a lot of school because it can't be dealt with when it's a small problem and it turns into pneumonia, and then all of a sudden they're behind, and then all of a sudden they're out of school. So this merger with Esperança gives us a whole new area of support. Our hope is that working together, we can have our kids have access to regular medical and dental care, educate them on we're already starting. The Esperança team has sent down this adorable little stuffed animal with big teeth, and in our homework clubs, the teachers are teaching, dental health and how to prevent cavities. And in the future, we are looking forward to bringing some of the other programs that Esperança does in other countries and even domestically, disease prevention, health education. So instead of just academic support, we're helping kids not just go to school and do well in the classroom, but learn how to lead healthier lives and be able to lead healthier lives, and their families too. Because if their parents are healthier, and living healthier lives, that's better for everybody.
Yep. I've always been so amazed at the breadth of the work that you do in Puerto Peñasco. And for many of our donors who are on the phone today on the webinar with us, that translates into, for instance, sponsoring a child. And that sponsoring a child covers the expenses of the things that you talked about, the public school support. So that's kind of how donors get to plug in addition to just general support for any of the programs. I think the thing that was most appealing to me in our conversations, in addition to us being very aligned in our methodology and the way in which we partner with local organizations, was also the sustainability of your program. Lots of nonprofits do kind of what I call parachuting in and fix immediate issues, as opposed to helping solve systemic problems. And your program helps us solve systemic problems. I'm always amazed when you've mentioned to me that sometimes the support, you talk about getting them into the door. Sometimes that's as simple as paying for getting a copy of their birth certificate, right? So it's all forms of support, feeding them, childcare, if the family can't get them to where you are and there's some span of time before they get off to work. So it's sort of like working in that gap between what the government can do and what the families can do, and how do we support them to be strong and healthy. And that's where our heart is as Esperança. So Kathleen, you and I went through quite a vetting process, and I guess just for everybody out there, we talked a lot about the merger. Essentially, Steps of Love was an independent 501c3 that passed money, gave money, and monitored the spending of that money to what was then AIM Peñasco, and we're now calling Educarte. Because Kathleen was both the president of AIM Peñasco, the Mexican nonprofit, and was also involved with Steps of Love, those two organizations looked like one and the same, but they really weren't. They were two entirely different organizations. And Steps of Love had its own US-based governance, and the Mexico AIM Peñasco had its own governance and was functioning independently. Steps of Love was the financial support for AIM Peñasco. So when Esperança came into the picture, we just took over that financial support role. And I think there was confusion among our donors as to what our role was. Were we taking over the program? Were we changing the program? Were we keeping the staff? And nothing about the program in Mexico has changed, except that it has expanded, right? And that we didn't disrupt the good work that was being done there. We have taken over the financial commitment to support that program. And that is exactly the same kind of support we give to our other partners, whether they're in Nicaragua or Bolivia. We do offer technical support when needed. And we will work with the staff and Kathleen, but really think of it as we just took over that function of Steps of Love and then brought more services to the table. So what kind of capacity building did the merger with Esperança in your mind, Kathleen? Because you're very strong about why this was a good move for this program in Mexico. And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's interesting, the timing of it, the timing of so many things in the evolution of this program are pretty amazing to me when I look back on it. But the year prior, leading up to Jeri's and my first conversation, December 27th, I think, I was sitting out here on my deck and got this call saying, hey, I have a thought. But what Jeri didn't know at the time was in the year leading up to these discussions about the merger, it was becoming clear to me. I was basically leading nonprofit organizations on both sides of the border. It was not planned, it just the way it happened. I started the program, my husband and I were funding it privately. Then I became part of this little nonprofit, all volunteer run organization that was very small called Steps of Love in the US. And they really liked the small little board, the direction that I was heading with this, launching this new education program, and decided that this would be their primary mission. And so basically the founder of the nonprofit there turned it over to me and said, take this and run with it. And so I was leading Steps of Love. We had an all volunteer board. We had no staff. And then I was also the founder. You know, the team really runs the program here and they have ownership of it, but I'm still at a high level needing to guide and be the strategic, you know, strategic and have oversight of the program here. And so that was fine for a while, but as things grew and grew and grew, we went from 72 students to now more than 800, and these programs grew, and my team grew from a team of 3 to a team of 25, and one homework club grew into 7 homework clubs and a special needs program. All of these things, it was becoming clearer and clearer to me that I had taken Steps of Love, especially on that side of the border, as far as I could with my limited capacity as one human being, and also my lack of experience in nonprofit leadership and fundraising, just through sheer, I think, will and enthusiasm and being willing to talk to anybody that would listen to me about these kids and my passion for it. We were able to each year increase the amount of funds that we raised to be able to grow the program. But it really got to the point in that previous year where I felt I could tell I'm holding, Steps of Love is holding the program back. I would be down here and the team would have so many wonderful ideas, and we would see the needs, and they had a desire to meet them, expanding into some of the things we have: a special need program, a future vocational program, health education, nutrition, adding medical and dental care to the kinds of support we provide. That I just did not have the capacity or the ability or skills to do that. And so I felt like I had taken things as far as I could, running things the way that they were as an all volunteer organization, and Steps of Love with me leading it. So we were, in fact, the reason that Jeri reached out, it turns out that we had decided, I guess we'll have to finally hire an executive director and try to do something to move to the next level so we can continue to grow our support for the program there. And so when Jeri called and said, you know, hey, how about how about, considering that joining forces? Our models are so similar. The way we approach the work is similar. To me, that was, I took that decision very seriously because I'm very protective of the program here. Everybody knows that. And I wouldn't have even considered it had I not felt comfortable that it was what was best for the program here. That's always my priority. What can benefit the kids here in the program? And it's not an ego thing for me, because I was very, very comfortable saying, that's not me. If AIM Peñasco is going to benefit much more by having this partner that now comes to us with 50 some odd years in international program development, an entire team that knows what they're doing, as opposed to in a group of volunteers trying to figure it out year to year. So it was so much better than just trying to hire an executive director and bump along and slowly grow another nonprofit. And Jeri and I have also talked about the idea that we're both located in Phoenix. Their offices are literally 1.5 miles from my home, which serves as my Steps of Love office, is my home. And why would we want to continue to grow overhead for Steps of Love and eventually have our own development director and our own executive director and our own admin team? And when we have this other nonprofit and we could join forces and not create two separate organizations, each with their own overhead and expenses, and instead have my program here become Esperança's 6th international partner, and all of the support and resources and knowledge and experience that go with that. So for me, I didn't rush into it. We did a lot of vetting and discussing to make sure, but almost a year's worth. But to me, there was no doubt in my mind that AIM Peñasco, if they had to choose between staying with Steps of Love and going with Esperança, that was a very, very easy decision.
That's a great way to lay that out, Kathleen. And before we begin to wrap up, and I just want to remind everybody, post your questions in the Q&A or in the chat. Before we wrap up, one of the things that was exciting for us is having a program. What is it, 2 hours, 3 hours from Phoenix? Am I
about 3.5, depending where you're coming from, 3.5
driving? So call it 4 hours. Having a program so near to where we're based. And I want everybody to hear some of the ways in which they can engage hands-on. And because that's unique, it takes a real effort to get to our other countries where it's really not as much of it's a quick trip across the border to work with you and your folks. And what kinds of things can people do if they wanted to come over to the program, and what kinds of activities are we looking at creating together?
Well, that's one of the most exciting things about this merger is we have always wanted to develop a robust volunteer program because of our proximity to the US, because of the number of people from the States who come down, who do fall in love with this community like I did, who do see the need, who do want to help invest in healthy ways in, you mentioned earlier, Jeri, like long-term generational change. That's what we're looking at. There's no quick fix here. We're not looking at the old adage of, teaching kids to fish, or giving them fish. We're trying to teach kids to fish. So it's a long-term commitment. And we're excited that through this merger between future medical dental clinics, people with that kind of experience, we have a new site, a permanent site, a permanent home. We've been vagabonds for 5-6 years. We have set up shop, our team scattered all over this community, and whatever space we could find, church halls, rented homes, rented office spaces, borrowed classrooms. And as of the first of the year, we are in a new permanent home that was purchased and is being donated for our use for as long as we need it. And so now we have a wonderful property that is already the home to our special needs program. It is home for all of our admin team, to our team to work out of. It is already home for the academic support center for our high school kids. It happens to be located just about a mile from one of the larger the 2 high schools in town. And so we're going to be developing more and more opportunities. We hope to have an organic garden to provide healthy food for the kids that they would help tend for, and then also be able to take food home. We are working with the University of Arizona on developing a curriculum their PhD students and professors are in their English as a second language department are working with us to develop a integrated English language curriculum into our program, so that as our kids are moving through school and eventually graduating from high school and going on to college or a vocational program, if along the way they can become proficient in English, we know that will provide so many wonderful opportunities for them to earn better wages. And so those are all going to be opportunities that we'll be looking for volunteers, especially the English language program. Sometimes the language is a barrier in us finding good roles for volunteers. Historically in our program, I mean, all we had was the academic support for public school students. But now we have a facility and we want to have a handicapped accessible playground there, and we want to have a garden, and all those projects, we will be reaching out and saying, hey, who wants to come down and help? A vocational program, if people have a certain skill set or materials they can bring down. And then when we have an English program, our hope is to have a Saturday English club where volunteers from the US could come down and through fun games and activities on Saturdays, help reinforce the English that the kids are learning during the week as part of their regular attendance in the education program.
That's awesome. You and I get excited every time we have these conversations because we see so much potential. I want to, Liz, do you still have a question? Because I will, I'm going to take you off mute. Do you have a question? Your hand was raised, or a comment? I guess you need to take off mute. I've just allowed you to. Okay, in the meantime, while Liz is figuring that out, we have a question in the Q&A box from Ray. How did we become aware of each other? How did I know that there was an opportunity to work with Kathleen? And that's a great question, because about a year ago, I think, or maybe 2 years ago, we started a program, or a networking group of other organizations in Phoenix doing international work. And AGDN is its abbreviation. And Anna's been leading that group. And I think there were probably at 15, 20 members. Kathleen was one of them. And so I met her through that networking group. And then when I saw her post, I saw her she sent out to her sort of an e-blast about hiring an executive director. So I already knew about the program. I knew about Steps of Love. I knew what it did. I knew where Kathleen's passion was. And then when she was hiring an executive director, I thought, now's the time to have a conversation about joining forces. So that's how that happened. Liz, are you with us?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
I don't particularly have a question, except I'm just very grateful to see your actual face. And I'm really pleased to hear this whole webinar thing about the Mexican connection. I love it. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. We appreciate you being here. Liz has been a longtime supporter of Esperança, and she and her husband are just extremely faithful and engaged, and we're really happy to have you join this call.
Thank you.
We have one more question in the chat, Jeri, from Peggy. I guess this is more for Kathleen. Do your volunteers need to live in Phoenix?
Absolutely not. Volunteers can come from wherever. And that's one of our high priorities over this next year, is to work together now as one new organization to develop this volunteer program and bring more structure to it. In the past, it's been me working individually for just to come up with unique volunteer opportunities, but it's not been very structured. And so we hope to, I've had athletes from UC Berkeley come down over their break and help build a playground. We've had church groups come down and help put in a roof on a classroom. We've had other groups come down and do special activities for Day of the Child, events, arts, crafts, those kinds of things, but we haven't had a real structured program. But once we have some regular structured volunteer activities available, volunteers can come from anywhere.
Yeah, you've had groups come from that one group you have. They came from all over the place, did a retreat, did some work at a homework club. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. There was a question from Judy about donations helping to support all 6 of our partner countries, or just the Steps of Love program. And that's a great question. Judy, that depends on how you designate your donation. So when you make a gift online or you send a check, if you make a note that says this is specifically for Mexico, then we will restrict it for the program in Puerto Peñasco. Or you say where needed most, and then we use it for across the programs broadly, or you say use it in Nicaragua or Bolivia. I mean, we can designate your funds to be used in any one of our programs. We are doing our best to make this transition of Steps of Love donors over to Esperanza, and I apologize for confusion or miscommunication. It's not been it's been difficult to try to get the messaging out consistently. And so we're hoping this will help clarify some of that inconsistency. But if you wish to give to only support Puerto Peñasco, you can certainly do that. We will make sure that happens.
Yeah, and
And
on
then-
the web, the Esperanza website, there is a Mexico, each of their programs has a page, and there is a Mexico. And on the Mexico page, you can click a button to donate, make a one-time donation, or sponsor a student, make a recurring donation, and those automatically get designated if you do it through the Mexico page. So you don't have to do anything special. It's if you're doing a check or something, then you have to designate that.
Yeah.
format.
And we've tried to keep we have kept the Steps of Love old prior website live, so we can continue to put more program information up, because Steps of Love donors were used to that. So we're trying to create the same communication patterns that you're accustomed to in the past. And the very last thing I want to be sure you get to talk about is your open house coming, because that's exciting.
Yes. Yes, so we have so much is new. We have a new name. The team down here really wanted to come up with a name moving forward that reflected the work they do here, and they chose the name Educarte and came up with a wonderful logo. And Educarte, for those of you who aren't aware, means to educate yourself, to raise yourself up. And so that's our new name. Even though the legal entity is still called Peñasco, we are moving forward as Educarte. Then we have a new US partner, a much stronger organization supporting the program here in Esperanza. And we also have this new home, a permanent, we're calling it Casa Educarte. It's Educarte's home. And it is going to house the majority of our programs at current and future. And so on Saturday, the 12th of February, we're having an open house from 10 to 12. I'm sorry, from 10 to 2. And we're just inviting the community here, people from the States, to come down. We'll have light refreshments. We're going to give tours of the new facility. We cannot, unfortunately, the program serving kids with special needs is amazing, and it's up and running in the new site, which is wonderful. And there's special rooms designated for all the different therapy disciplines, and we can't have contact with the kids. So we've created videos that you'll be able to see the different kids getting different therapies in each of those rooms to see. And then we'll show you all of the spaces in the future. Here's a future medical, dental exam rooms, a future garden space, future playground. And so we're going to be doing tours and just letting people come see our new home.
Great. And I'm going to apologize in advance. I can't be there. I will be in San Francisco, a trip obligation that I had on the books for about 8 months. But Misty, our board chair, will be there, as will Elena and Anna, who's our international program director. So we will be well represented. That is for sure. Kathleen, is there anything else we left out? I think we did it, right? We gave a really good overview of how we got here. We talked a little bit about the program. We have 2 Steps of Love board members currently serving on our board, Emmy Burback and Cindy Connolly, as well as Kathleen. And Kathleen is an more than honorary. I only say honorary because she's a non-paid staff member, but she might as well be a staff member. She works as hard as any of our staff, and her just everyday contact and interaction is really helpful in making sure that we that this transition goes smoothly and that we learn and about the program and are able to support it in the way we need to. So
yeah, and I would say the one concern that consistently I have addressed is, oh, well, so are you stepping back? Are you going away?
Right.
Are you, now that Esperança is there, will you be involved? And what is so exciting to me is you couldn't drag me away from this program, but what's exciting to me is I'm actually now going to be freed up to do more of what I truly love. And that is because I have this strong nonprofit in the US that I'm not having to run. I'm very involved. And as Jeri said, we communicate regularly and I'm supporting their efforts. And I'm going to continue to support their efforts in the US. I'm actually thrilled that I'm going to be freed up to spend more time with my team here because I'm not having to lead organizations on both sides of the border and really help them grow and evolve and be the kind of the link between the US nonprofit and making sure that they understand what the plans are down here and what's coming down the road and what kind of support we might need. I'm coming back after I'm down here now and I'm coming back. I'm warning you all with a couple of requests for training that we've been asked. And that's where it's so nice for me because now I don't have to go, how am I going to find, I can go to this team, Esperança, and say, can you all help me find someone that can help do some training for our teachers in cooperative learning because we have mixed ages and also there's some health issues and we want to get some training in that first aid and that kind of thing. So now I have these resources where I can kind of be the liaison between the team here. But as opposed to stepping back, I see this as just allowing me to even, spend more time really doing the part of this work that I love. And that's being here with the team and the kids that we serve.
well, and the last few months you've been there more than here and you're there now. So she's coming to us live from Puerto Peñasco. So but it's interesting. Our staff we're much more hands-on with this partnership. And I think it's the integration of Kathleen into the staff and our work, but also the proximity. We've talked about our health educators from our domestic program going to many of them are from Mexico. So it's not it's their home and they're very excited to get involved in the community there. So it gives us an opportunity to be more hands-on with a partner than we are with some of our other partners just because of the distance. So I just want to bring us to a close, and I want to reassure everybody on the phone that this partnership is strong and healthy and benefiting the local team. And I think that if you ever have any questions, Kathleen and I are available. Our doors are always open, our virtual doors too. All you need to do is email us, Kathleen@esperanza.org and Jeri@esperanza.org. So we're very easy to get a hold of. And if you'd like to get involved, let us know. We will put you to work. So I think there's one more question. Let me just see. Does your team meet in your house or do you have a place of business in Phoenix? So your team, Kathleen's team is all in Mexico and she's the president of that nonprofit. Her team here in Arizona is us and we have office space. Esperança has office space, but her satellite office in Phoenix is her home. Right? When
it's a mile from your offices.
Right.
I can ride my bike down.
So she has a home at Esperança and we have a campus and we also have just started an urban garden, which we're very excited because that's going to be a great translation to the property in Mexico as well. There's lots of possibilities. So,
and I think someone had asked, is Esperança 501c3 in the chat? And yes, they are. And so we just merged legally when we went through all of the steps. And so we're registered with the state of Arizona and all that because we were two separate 501c3s. And now we are one. Esperança essentially absorbed Steps of Love. That has been deactivated. And now we are one nonprofit working together.
Yeah, and Cindy, who's been filling out all the paperwork, the 990 for years, she's really happy not to have to do that anymore. So a lot of the board members got relieved of work, which is nice too. And now they can just be focused on governance. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. It's been great. Kathleen, thank you as always. You are a valued partner and a valued friend. And I mean that. And Kathleen and I often have talks about leadership and what it's like to lead organizations and be in the positions we are. And I value her counsel and her friendship.
Well, and
So-
unlike me, Jeri actually has a background in doing this. She knows what she's doing. I'm just learning as I go. So I'm thrilled to have someone that actually has training and experience in doing what they're doing.
We are learning from each other, that is for sure. So thank you very much, everybody. And we will close for now and look forward to seeing you in Puerto Peñasco someday. Thank you, Kathleen.
And hopefully I'll see some of you on the 10th.
Yes, on the 12th.
I'm sorry,
12th.
the 12th. Saturday the 12th.
Okay.
I'm coming down on the 10th. The 12th is the open house.
All right. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay.